Thank you for the introduction. My name is Arikana CHIHOMBORI. Wow, what a message from Professor Lumumba. To my brother, Professor Lumumba, it's good to share a stage with you again, though virtually this time. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week in Columbus, Ohio. What a message, my brothers and sisters. What a message. What a wake-up call. Professor Lumumba has taken us all over the place. The organizers of this important event, we can't thank you enough for pulling this lion all the way from Africa to come and share with us realities called naked truth about our beloved continent, called naked truth about who we are as a people and how we must look from within as to why our Africa is what it is today, as to why we have allowed our Africa to continue to be exploited and abused and taken advantage to the extent that it has to this day, 2021. Professor Lumumba, thank you for opening our minds. Thank you for calling a spade a spade. As I was preparing and trying to decide on what aspect of my message should concentrate on, after listening to you, I've had to make a few adjustments. Because as you spoke, from the issues pertaining to why we don't have a single currency, why we still adhere to the boundaries and passports and different immigration officers from one border to the other. As we spoke about our challenges of simply not being able to look within our means, and some of those issues that we're definitely capable of addressing, somehow we seem just incapable. And of course, I keep drifting back to also the same issue that PLO has addressed, the mind. But as I was trying to process it and understand it fully, and adding my own experiences as well, I couldn't help but also begin to realize in a very realistic way that really let's also understand one thing. Africa is under siege. Some of the issues he highlighted on, when you begin to understand the genesis as to why we are mission impossible, I thought maybe I should take a moment and highlight what I would like to consider 7 root causes as to why our Africa is where Africa is. Our African national anthem speaks of the African tree of life. The African tree of life was once upon a time a thriving tree that gave beautiful, delicious fruits, lovely flowers, and fed the world. It is the tree of life that is the origin of humanity as we know it. It's well understood that the black man and the black woman are the mothers and fathers of humanity. And without us, there wouldn't be humanity as we know it. We are the nation, the continent that taught people how to be human. We are the continent that taught people civilization. The question then becomes, what happened to this beautiful tree of life? Why is it an ailing tree? Allow me to highlight what I feel are the 7 issues of the root that we are ignoring, that somehow the powers that be would rather we did not talk about, but instead they want us to focus on issues above this ailing African tree. Issues of poor leadership, issues of starvation, issues of corruption, poor healthcare systems, poor educational systems. All are issues above the root. And we are spending all our energies talking, attempting to strategize on addressing the issues above the root. I equate those to the leaves and the flowers and the branches that come and go from one season to the other. Sometimes they might stay around a little bit longer. But sooner or later, those beautiful fruits will soon disappear. Those beautiful flowers will soon disappear, and we start the cycle all over again. We have tried changing leaders in Africa, but tell me one African country that we changed leaders and true sustainable change came. We have some change, but not sustainable change that can take us to the promised land. It's because the root causes have not been addressed. The root causes are not even being talked about. Root cause number one. If we can address these root causes, it will become easier for us to address the issues above the root. In my humble opinion, root cause number one is the mind. When the white people, the colonizers, came to Africa, they did not call themselves white, and we were not black. They found amazing tribes with well-established religious and educational systems, and they wondered how on earth they were going to conquer such a people. So they decided to destroy us where it mattered the most, which is the mind. They introduced religion and informed us of a place called hell. And they said in hell there is a big, ugly black devil, an evildoer who we must all shy away from. And they said, oh, by the way, while we may have gone to school and taught you about the different colors, which included a white sheet of paper and how black looks like, you too are black like the devil. And also there's a place called heaven. There are beings called angels in heaven. They are the do-gooders that we must work our entire lives to be like them. Desirable. And oh, by the way, they also happen to be white. Oh, like us. We might not look like this white piece of paper, but never mind. We are white, like the angels. Jesus Christ, that we all know from the good book, was a brown man. He had hair like wool, crimson skin. We know that to be true because when in the Bible, when Mary and Joseph were being told to run away from King Herod, they were sent to Egypt. Why Egypt? Because in Egypt, he would blend like others who looked like him. So we went to church, got on our knees, began to run away from what we were told looked like us, the devil who was black, and worship the angels who are white, like them. Jesus Christ, over the years, the photographs of Jesus Christ have changed to where now Jesus Christ looks exactly like them. This was a blatant lie. There is no such thing as a white person who has died and gone to heaven and seen white angels, who has died and gone to heaven and seen a black devil. Such a blatant lie that began the process of black self-hate, blatant lie that began the process of black mistrust of each other, blatant lie that began the process of us black people not believing in our abilities and looking to the West for better things. Line number one, to this day, our religious leaders have a responsibility to undo these lies. Being a devil or an angel has nothing to do with color. The police officer who knelt on George Floyd right there in Minneapolis was the personification of a devil. Color has nothing to do with it. If you understand line number one, you'll understand why we have been lied to. We, the mothers of humanity, are made to believe that what we do is undesirable and what the West does is better and more desirable. Issue number 2, after they had destroyed our minds, they went on to physically destroy our beloved continent. They met in Berlin, Germany, and they chopped up our continent into tiny little economies that we are today, all by design. They met in Berlin from November of 1884 to February of 1885, precisely to strategize on how to see to it that Africa and her children are forever defeated and dominated. May I underscore that? They did not spend 4 cold months in Berlin for nothing. They had defeated us in the mind where it mattered. It was now the division of the physical Africa, who in their mind creates a sovereign nation such as Togo, Benin, Congo Brazzaville, 1.4 million people, 4 million in the Congo Brazzaville, 1.2 in Eswatini. Even if you were to take the larger African countries, 10 million here, 15 million here, or we give you sovereignty, just like the big boys who were your former colonizers. At that time, we were still under colonization. We're broken up into tiny little countries, assigned to different leaders, countries, colonizers who spoke different languages. I often say, picture yourself driving from Zambia, you're speaking English. Before you know it, you're in DRC, you're speaking French. Keep going a little east, you're now in Equatorial Guinea, you're speaking Spanish. Continue a little north, you're in southern Cameroon, you're speaking English. Keep going north, still in Cameroon, now you're speaking French again. And before you know it, you're in Nigeria, you're speaking English. And you keep going. The leaders of those little countries that you see in West Africa, they're all sovereign nations. It was all by design to take a people who were once one, humongous, proud, strong tribes, destroy them, give them a different language. 2 generations later, they won't even realize they're related. Second level of destruction of the Black person. By the time the children of Africa were taken out of Africa as slaves, they were already destroyed. They already believed anything Black is undesirable and everything Western was better and more desirable. So it is for those who like to think Berlin Conference is a piece of history. Think again. How does the small African nations, how do they go to the world stage to trade with the big boys? Take one of the little countries with 1.5 million people. They have to go and negotiate with China and its 1.4 billion people. And we sit around as the world and say, but what's your problem? You can't negotiate with China. Africa is defeated before the game even begins. Until the boundaries disappear, until Africa can have a single currency, until Africa can have a single military, until Africa can have its own monetary policy, until Africa can get rid of the foreign militaries within the African continent, Berlin Conference remains alive and well. That's root cause number 2. Root cause number 3, in my humble opinion, have you ever wondered why African countries are given these frivolous loans with very high interest rates? The same loan given to African countries will pay 15 to 20% interest rate. Western countries are paying 1 to 2%, sometimes less than 1%. As far as I know, you can count on one hand at any given time the number of African countries that have defaulted on their loan repayments. Why is it then countries that have never defaulted on their loan repayments continue to be given huge interest rates by these financial institutions such as the World Bank, the IMF, the Paris clubs, many other international organizations and institutions. Of course, now we have the Chinese. It's all by design to keep African countries chasing our tails. It is all by design because remember, the Bretton Woods institutions, they were designed with the simple premise that their success is based on our failure. Their success is based on our failure. So it is as we speak, the average African country spends over a third of her GDP on loan repayment. Over a third on loan repayment. The financial system, the global financial system, is skewed against the development of Africa, all by design. It must be disrupted. What saddens me, however, currently, when you run into Africans born in Africa who now work for the World Bank, they're the same ones being sent to Africa and push those bad policies that are detrimental to the continent. Why is it the children of Africa who should be defending Africa, defending these bad policies, why are they the ones pushing them? It goes back to the mind. You see, I got my job in Washington, D.C., and I want to stay in Washington. So I'm just going to push any agenda that I'm given. It is sickening. Because before they used to chain us, but now we are chaining ourselves. I saw it firsthand. Africans working for the World Bank, they're the ones being sent to Africa. The world financial policies must be disrupted. Let's make no mistake about it. Plain and simple, until those issues addressed, African countries will forever be chasing our tails. Issue number 4, the World Trade Organization. Have you ever wondered why we are incapable of adding value to our natural resources? It's not that we can't, but the policies are such that whenever African countries try to add value to our natural resources, all kinds of issues, tariffs are placed on us. Perfect example is West Africa, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. Probably some of the largest producers of cocoa. And every time those countries tried to start adding value to the cocoa beans, the tariffs that were slapped on the value-added products were so high that it wasn't even worth them adding value. It was all by design. I can use even an example right now that we're going through with our ability, our efforts to manufacture our own COVID vaccines. We're still fighting to get permission from the World Trade Organization. United States agreed that we can manufacture our own vaccines. Thank you, President Biden. However, here comes the kicker, my brothers and sisters. About 60 of the ingredients that are needed to manufacture the vaccines in Africa are still under embargo. We can't get them. How ridiculous is that? It all goes back to the World Trade Organization. The games that have been played to make sure that African natural resources provide jobs and improve economies of the West have been going on since before the Berlin Conference. And they continue to this very day. Even as we are trying to implement our own African Continental Free Trade Area, you will find that there will still be roadblocks that go back to the World Trade Organization, where we must get permission to manufacture our own products in our own African countries using our own natural resources. I once had to entertain a lady, I won't mention the country, from the Ministry of Health. They had 2 herbs that they were going to begin manufacturing some medication. And she had made a trip all the way from Africa to come and explain to the powers that be that this is what we would like to do and we need your permission. My question to her was, why? She said, my sister, if we don't do this, Big Pharma will come after us and we'll never be able to do anything. I'm saying this to say, my brothers and sisters, as we strategize to really build a sustainable Africa, we must understand the root causes of what is really going on that is never talked about. The World Trade Organization policies, they too must be disrupted as a matter of urgency. Until we do, value addition to our natural resources is only going to be a dream. Value addition to our natural resources by the Africans, for the Africans, is a threat to the Western world. Let's make no mistake about it. They know it. And they are going to fight us. You be prepared to fight back. The way you fight back is through knowledge. Now you have it. Disrupt the World Trade Organization and its policies that are skewed against Africa. Root cause number 5. That's you and I. The African diaspora. The brain drain out of Africa started over 400 years ago, starting with the children of Africa being taken out of Africa as slaves. And it continued with those who have left Africa in search of greener pastures. The end result is, as we speak today, healthcare, education, engineering, agriculture, any sector, IT, Africa does not have enough of the expertise we need to build the Africa that we want. That's just a fact. And I can give you an example of healthcare, which is a sector that I know well. Today, as we speak, Africa needs over 1.4 million doctors. We don't even have a third. There are countries that have 1 orthopedic surgeon. There are countries that have 1 cardiologist. There are countries that are looking at 1 doctor per 700,000 patients. It's ridiculous. It's unsustainable. No amount of money put into healthcare in Africa will deliver the desired results. Why? Because there are more Ghanaian doctors in New York City than in the entire country of Ghana. There are more Nigerian doctors in Nigeria than in the entire country. In Los Angeles, than in the entire country of Nigeria. President Nana felt that the way he was going to improve healthcare in Ghana was by building more hospitals or renovating old ones. That he did. Well, guess what? Half the wards were sitting empty. Not because there are no patients, but because there were no doctors. You're here. You and I. We are in the diaspora. And yet we stand up and talk and complain. My mother couldn't access healthcare. Well, duh. How do you think healthcare is going to be improved when there are no doctors? We're all running out. Let's own those issues that we must own. The brain drain out of Africa must be reversed. It's easier said than done, but to whom much is given, much is expected. We as diaspora, let's be realistic. Let's make a commitment that we can no longer continue to do what Albert Einstein has defined as insanity, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Let's commit to being the generation that's going to say, we are now seeing with 2020 vision, and we are going to change our trajectory. That we are going to be the generation that say, no more shall we continue to be disrespected. But that's not something that we can just call and claim. We have to earn it. We have to act it. The brain drain out of Africa must be reversed. If we are going to build a sustainable Africa, we must participate effectively. If we are going to make any demands to our leadership, we must first and foremost understand what is really going on, so we don't find ourselves fighting over a leaf on a tree before we address the root causes as to why this leaf is ailing, because there is no water in the root, or somebody is stealing the water. Issue number 6, the United Nations. Have you ever wondered, an organization that's supposed to be the watchdog, the mandate is to be the watchdog of human rights violations around the world. When the League of Nations was put together, was to prevent wars and create peace among nations. If I were to take you to the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization, when the colonizers were still colonizing us, and then they decided to leave, give us back our independence. They left on paper, but physically they have never left. The multinational companies that control the economies back then, they continue to control the economies to this day. The multinationals from colonization, they continue to control the economies of every African country. They're the majority of the employers in every African country. How then can we take over our Africa if we do not own and control the pillars of development? And then France did something absolutely deplorable. The Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. All of you know that France to this day remains the biggest threat to peace and security in Africa. Of the 14 countries that were under French colonization and continue pretty much to be under French colonization, in my opinion, they're still sending their monies, their bank reserves, to the French treasury. There is a French representative at the central banks of this country, French representative at the foreign ministry. They're still having priority over minerals, oil, natural resources discovered yet to be discovered. They still have French military all over their nations. They control everything. They're the biggest perpetrators of human rights violations. Of the 26 assassinated African leaders, 16 are documented to have died under the hands of the French legionnaires. These are all facts, known, and yet France is one of the 5 members of the UN Security Council. When you look at the nations who are in the 5-member UN Security Council, they have committed and perpetrated some of the worst human rights violations on earth. When you look at the Security Council, you ask yourself, the largest voting bloc at the United Nations, which is Africa, is not occupying the key position. The question then becomes, why is Africa even going to the United Nations? There's nothing there for us. We are there to rubber stamp our presence. Africa was present? Yes, check. If our minds were in the right place, our leadership should be saying, why do we come to New York every year? There's nothing there for us. Nothing, zero, zilch, spending people's money, coming to New York for nothing. And that is a fact, and they know it. Why can't we come together and say, United Nations, thanks, but no thanks? Until you can represent us, until Africa is represented at the UN Security Council, there's nothing there for us. The UN was not designed for us. We must speak up. We must defend our Africa. We must look at some of the violations, the abuses that continue to this day. And allow me to highlight one last one. Have you ever wondered, 2021, Europe is still holding on to hundreds of remains of our leaders, our ancestors who they murdered. To this day, Zimbabwe, one of our freedom fighters, Mbuya Nehanda, President Mugabe has been requesting her remains since he took office in 1980. Last year, we were told they were going to give us back her remains. To this day, they are still holding on to them. Guys, talk to me. What sense do you make out of this? This is just Zimbabwe. Many of them, several bodies from Zimbabwe, and then many others from other African countries, they know they have the remains. What justification do they have, for heaven's sake, for keeping these bodies? We just want to take them back home for proper burial. They are refusing. Come on, world, talk to me. Where is the fairness about this? Where is the righteousness? What is wrong with this picture, United Nations? It is ridiculous. It is crazy. It makes no sense. And as a Black woman, these are moments that I feel hopeless. What do you do with such a system? How long would a finger of a British man last in any African country? How long will a toe of a Frenchman last in any African country? Talk to me. But because it's Africa, it's okay. As we speak, thousands of artifacts, priceless artifacts, were stolen out of Africa. They're still holding them in their libraries.
Dr. Chihombori, because of time, we would like you to maybe stop it there, please.
So allow me to conclude by saying the root causes of why we are where we are today is because our minds. We were destroyed where it mattered the most. When we can wake up and understand our world for what it is then and only then can we begin to build a sustainable Africa by us for the Africans. Issue number one, to conclude, the mind is where we were defeated. Let's heal ourselves from the legacy of slavery and the legacy of colonization. When the Black man and the Black woman is awoke, it doesn't matter where you place us. We will fight and we will defend our Africa to the fullest and stop the abuse and carnage that is going on in Africa today. It has got to come to an end, and only you and I can come together, creating that meaningful unity of purpose. Can we rescue our Africa from the continued exploitation? Thank you for having me.